This is the Turtle Dojo, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles podcast with your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to another episode of the Turtle Dojo, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
I'm doing really well, Adam. Once again, happy to be joining you here. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, and as you know, it's always fun to talk our favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's always a bonus. But it seems like it's been a while since we've done a turtle-centric one. And the wait was worth it because now we've both seen TMNT, Mutant Mayhem? The latest animated feature film. I was about to say live action, but that's not accurate. Animated feature film that came out this past summer. I've seen it twice now. I believe this is your first crack at it, Chris?
Yeah, I didn't get around to seeing it in the theaters, so I viewed it on streaming for the first time.
Awesome. So we have, maybe the same perspective, maybe slightly different because I've seen it one extra time, but we'll figure that out as we review it. But as we always do on our shows, Chris, when there's news regarding the IP we're discussing, we tell you the news and then share our thoughts on it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We've got two pieces of news. One set in the comic book realm of things. As we know, TMNT, The Last Ronin, was a huge success. It spawned a prequel, which we will review, which was The Lost Years. And now it's getting an official sequel titled TMNT, The Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution. It was supposed to be released in December of this year, 2023, but it has now been moved just a couple of months to February of 2024. So from my perspective, in terms of the shifting of release date, I'm cool with it if it means that it can come out on a consistent schedule once it comes out, because the first one was heavily delayed, seemed like every issue. And it was, I remember we tried to review it monthly and then we just gave up and said, we'll review it when it's all done. And that's what we ended up doing. But so if the delay means that they can get everything situated and it to come out on time, whether it be monthly or bi-monthly, I'm A-okay with that. But Chris, what are your thoughts on specifically a direct sequel itself, and then thoughts on the delay?
Well, that's a universe that I'm always happy to spend more time in because I really enjoyed the first Last Ronin series. I thought it was very well done. So, you talk about prequels, sequels. There's talk of a video game.
There is a video game coming, yes.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I'm really excited for all of that stuff because I think it's a really cool concept. First of all, the whole Last Ronin, the idea behind that story. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited to see it progress and where it goes from here.
Right.
And then as far as the delay, I'm in the same boat as you. It's kind of a bummer because I'm looking forward to reading it. But it's just 2 months. That's fine. And it's right. It's through the holidays when I'm busy anyway, so I might not be missing it as much. But yeah, if it can help them come closer to some sort of release schedule, then, like you said, I'm in favor of it.
Right. The other bit of news that we have to talk about, relates to the movie we're going to review, in the sense that, as we knew shortly, I believe it was not too long after the movie was announced, maybe a couple months after, we learned that there was also going to be a animated series which would be set in the world of the movie, that had been greenlit by Paramount Plus for, right out of the gate, 2 seasons. And we now know the title of that show is going to be Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we now have a release date for that series, which is April of 2024.
Sweet.
I don't know if you remember this, Chris, or if you're even aware at all, but the difference between this series and the movie is that it will be a 2D animated series as opposed to that sort of CGI, not CGI, but I guess a little bit of CGI with whatever you classify the Spider-Verse animation as, which was the style of the Mutant Mayhem movie. So it's going to be 2D. I think a show about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being released in April in any year is pretty cool. Given there's a major character named April in the mythos, so that's cool. And I like the name, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because that calls back to basically was a side comic that was released with the original Mirage comics that would spotlight, individual characters that get their own sort of mini story. So I like the carryover of the name. And yeah, more of this world. Sign me up. Like I'm the more TMNT content there is, the better. And the fact that within 2 months of each other, we're going to have The Last Ronin Part 2 and this animated series launching. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy about that. What about you, Chris? What's your take on all this?
Yeah, 2024 is lining up to be a banner year for some Ninja Turtles content.
It's almost as if where there's a delay in like maybe DC content. We're getting it. It sort of supplemented with TMNT content, which is good. So I'm happy. While the DCU gets sort of refreshed for its 2025 relaunch kind of thing, we'll have Turtles to hold us over, which would be nice. Yeah. So, sorry, I interrupted you there. What else were you going to say? You're going to say something else?
Well, I don't want to say too much because it'll get into my thoughts on the movie that we're gonna review tonight. But let's just say, like, I think it's gonna be well received, and I think I'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I liked the animation in the movie. I had some issues in certain spots, which we'll get into, but I'm kind of happy that it's 2D animation, because that's more. Maybe I'm a traditionalist, but that's more my jam. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I love Spider-Verse and those two movies, and the animation is cool. But there's a part of me at certain points where I'm like, I don't know if I like that choice. So I'm a 2D animation guy. Sue me, call me old-fashioned, call me whatever the hell you want. I've been called many names, so what's another one to add to the pile? But it's just it is what it is, and that's what I'm sort of geared to. So I'm happy that it's 2D.
Yeah, and I think the animation style that we are seeing in these movies is probably pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So to do it on a TV budget might not be like the most cost-friendly way of doing a series.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. So that's pretty much all we have in terms of news. The only other thing that I think is worth mentioning, the current comics are hitting a milestone issue coming up, I believe, in 2024, which is 150. And what's noteworthy is that with the 150th issue, it will be Sophie Campbell, who has written the series for about 50 straight issues. It'll be her last issue. It won't be the series' last issue, but it'll be her last issue. So it'll be interesting to see how she wraps things up and who takes over. I'm very curious to see who the next creative team is. And I'm happy that I'm collecting the TMNT books via Amazon and Kindle digitally, because I just basically wake up and I get an email saying, your comic's ready and it's there, and I don't have to keep track of it. I love my physicals, and I have 5 or 6 that I keep physically, but I do like digital for the fact that I don't have to run. Like, is this coming out? Is it, like, I can just click pre-order, and then every month they just slide into I get an email saying, hey, it's ready, go ahead and read it. So there is an advantage there. But I'll be curious to see who. We've had some experience with Sophie Campbell. You have, Chris, because of the book that we have to get back to, which was the massive crossover,
right?
With the Turtles. But what are your thoughts on her as a writer, from what you've read, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I've really enjoyed her work that I've read so far. What she's done, you say 50 issues, and it's monthly, right?
Yes.
So that's all. It's a little 4 years plus. And it's. I think it's been a pretty good run, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm loving it.
And most people seem to have enjoyed it. So it's kind of a bummer that area is coming to an end. But you're right. There is some excitement to know what creative team will be coming on board to take over.
My only hope, and this is comics across the board. IDW, if any of you that are in charge of the TMNT are listening, for the love of God, don't restart at number 1.
Right.
Just keep going with 151. There's something nice about that nice long number. There's like an accomplishment of, hey, look, we've reached X amount of issues.
Yeah, sure.
So keep it going. Look, if you renumber it, I'm not going to stop reading, of course. But if I was in charge, I'd just keep going at 151. Let's who are we kidding here? And the other thing I will say, Chris, and this is kind of a look ahead for you, because I think you're a fan of Stranger Things, right?
Yes, although I haven't watched season 4 yet. My daughter is very upset at me for that.
Oh, okay, well, you'll have to sort that out and fix that. But what I can tell you is one of the things we're going to do either later this year before the year's out or early into next year on this podcast is review the comic TMNT Stranger Things crossover.
Sweet.
I just finished reading it, and I don't want to spoil my thoughts on it, but just knowing some of your TMNT sensibilities so far, I think you're going to dig it. And I won't say any more because it'll spoil my overall review, and I don't want to do that before we even touch on the book. But that's just a look ahead. Gotta love the Turtles crossovers. Like, they've been in some crossovers, and it amazes me how they just keep with properties you don't expect, and yet they find a way to make it happen and make it successful. So look forward to that either later this year or early in the new year. We'll figure out scheduling, and when we have that sorted, we'll bring it to you. But that's it now officially for the news. You and I will take a quick break, and then on the other side, we'll come back and finally talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. So everybody, go grab a slice of pizza if it's not too late to eat, if you're hungry, and your beverage of choice, and then come back on the other side of the break and listen to us talk about that movie. So we'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back, and as promised, it's time, finally, after months and months and months of putting it off and scheduling issues, to review Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, the next evolution of one of our favorite franchises. So, Chris, I think I can safely say that in the lead up to this movie, all the podcasts we discussed various news elements from the movie. I think you and I were both pretty excited for this film, right?
Yeah. I think we were. I was.
Yeah, I was as well. Before we dive in and say what did you think of it after you've seen it, give our viewers, as you always do so well, a little breakdown of what's going on in this film.
Okay, so our favorite ninja quartet is 15 years old and has been living in the sewers of New York, hidden away from humans. Their father, Splinter, who they call Dad in this movie, not Splinter, like they really drive that home.
Yeah.
He tells them that humans are disgusting and dangerous, and he wants them to have nothing to do with the human world. But they are very intrigued by the world around them and very drawn to it. So they concoct stories and errands that they have to run so that they can go out and do fun things out in the world. Well, they come up with a plan to expose themselves to the world and be accepted by the humans, and this plan is to bring down a criminal organization that is in charge of crime skyrocketing in New York, which is led by a supervillain named Superfly.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do this, they get help from their new friend, April O'Neil, who is a wannabe journalist. She's a writer for her school paper, but wants to be a professional journalist. Mm-hmm. And together, they set out to bring down Superfly and his criminal organization and expose themselves to the public, and hopefully the public will love them for it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well done as always, Chris. So, with that being said, overall, just no spoiler, quick thought. How did the movie fare, given your expectations for it?
I would say the movie surpassed my expectations.
Nice. For me, it's interesting because on the first viewing, I liked it. On my second viewing, which was earlier today, I loved it. So maybe the fact that I went with my nieces and nephews and I had questions being asked of me as the movie was going on, hindered my first viewing, but the second viewing really drove some things home. There's still things I'm going to have to get used to, but I do love it upon second viewing. One of the things that really strikes me with this version is the teenage aspect. I mean, everybody in interviews, Seth Rogen, the whole 9 yards, the director, they all, hammered home the fact that this was going to, really focus in on the teenage aspect, and they delivered in that aspect. And it really does pull on your heartstrings to watch. When you watch other versions, it's like they're in the sewers, they're sheltered from humanity, but that's more of the turtles wanting to employ ninja tactics, and also understanding that in order to keep humanity safe, they already know that humanity's gonna have a tough time accepting them. In other versions, they've kind of accepted that, and almost for the humans' own benefit, they're staying more to the shadows. Where in this, it seems like the four turtles have a much more difficult time with understanding, well, why can't we go up there? Why can't we live amongst humans? Why do they hate us so much? Just because we're different. You know what I mean? So it's a different dynamic completely, I think. Both work, but this really is something I don't think we've seen in turtle adaptations to this level. Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's been explored as deeply as it was in this movie.
Yeah, like something as simple as them wanting to finish watching a movie,
right?
But they can't, and kudos to the musical score in this scene. It really pulls at the heartstrings. I'm man, I feel bad for the turtles.
Oh, sure.
In this iteration.
Well, the first human they meet is April O'Neil,
Yeah.
and they ask her if humans will accept them, and she says, "Yeah, definitely not."
And it's what the sad part is, if you take away the turtle aspect, the mutant turtle aspect of it, and just apply anybody that's different than the perceived status quo in society, what April O'Neil is saying is not entirely untrue of our present day world we live in. It's a sad indictment on humanity in general. But
One thing this movie does is it treats their it treats their reveal to the public a little bit more like seriously. They're not walking around in trench coats and like big floppy hats trying to hide their green face and big green feet. So I really like the way it was handled in this movie. It wasn't done for like cheap laughs.
It's a big shocking event. Like, it's a big reveal when they finally reveal themselves. But what was shocking to me, but it made sense, it's not a bad thing, was Splinter's attitudes toward humanity. Split up my words. That would make sense. That would help make sense. But it's very like he's very against. He's very mistrusting against humans.
Oh yes.
And you see it in the flashback origin when he wants to bring the young turtles up, to the surface, because they're so intrigued by every time they see lights or commotion from above, they get curious, and so for their own benefit he wants to try and bring them up. And when the people on the streets of New York realize that he is a giant humanoid rat, they freak, and there's a point in the movie where you see them almost wanting to gang up on him and beat him up, and before he gets away. So you can understand the mistrust and the caution with Splinter, but it is a very different angle to take from the Splinter that we're used to.
Yeah, it sure is. He was very like he didn't mince words, and he was very adamant about the turtles having nothing to do with humans in any regard. And it even shows when he is really worried about them, when he calls them and says they need to come home because it's an emergency. And he has set up this little like surprise party with cardboard cutouts of Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pine, and Chris Evans. And
Chris's.
Yeah. And he's trying to bring the human world to the turtles. So it's like you can see that he cares about his sons and what they care about, but he's not ready to let them go that far yet to reveal themselves, because he still thinks that it's not in their best interest to do that.
Right. Speaking of the origin that I kind of touched on briefly, I really found it interesting that the Turtles' origin and Superfly's origin are, in this iteration, tied together.
Sure.
Through Baxter Stockman.
Yep.
Who we only see ever so briefly.
Played by the wonderful Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, that's great casting, and
I mean the whole cast in this movie is really well done. Even the Turtles, who I didn't know any of them going into this movie. They all did a great job. I thought.
Right. The fact that they were all teenagers really lends authenticity to that aspect of the film. And also, what I liked about it is that at least in their interaction, they felt very much like brothers. It's the way brothers would interact. The jabs, the jabbing of each other, the ripping of each other, but also when times are really tough and you need support from your brother, or your brothers in this case, they're always there for you. So I thought all of that was very authentic, and that's just as much due to the writing as it is to the portrayal, the voice work of the four kids in this movie. But yeah, Giancarlo Esposito was great. But I liked that it was tied into, like, the origin was kind of tied together. I do hope we do see more of, or hear more of, Giancarlo Esposito, and we do see more of Baxter Stockman, maybe in sequels.
Well, in one part of the movie, Superfly mentions that the humans killed their father. So was Baxter Stockman killed? I thought he was just like taken by.
I don't think we ever saw a body. So, mind you, it is a kids movie, so they're going to show a corpse. But I don't think you take that player off the board that quickly. I just don't see that. Maybe he thinks he's dead. Right. But I don't think he is. I could be wrong, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I just don't see them taking Baxter Stockman off the board that quickly. And so,
yeah, you can do a lot of things with that character.
Yeah. And then, so in addition to Superfly, there's the behind
gang of mutants,
right? And so there's sort of two threats that the Turtles have to face here, which is Superfly and the gang of mutants that he's assembled, who are trying to, their end game is essentially to turn most of the world into mutants, and then the rest of the humans will be used as slaves or pets or what have you.
Payment.
Yeah, right. And he's flanked by Bebop, Rocksteady, Leather. Is it Leatherhead? I think it is, right? There's a bunch of other ones, but those are the mainstays.
Mondo, Gecko,
yeah.
Genghis Frog.
Right, and so it's really a who's who of villainry. But then there's also the behind the scenes threat of Cynthia Utrom.
Yeah.
Who wants to capture the Turtles and drain them of their mutant energy to create like I guess super soldiers of her own is her end game. And there's that running joke where one of Splinter's fears is, the humans are going to capture you and milk you, right, for your mutagen. And the Turtles are dismissing, that'll never happen. That's ridiculous. And sure enough, what does she have but a milking machine? And so that's the running joke between Splinter, or the running thing that's played off of between Splinter and the boys. And so there's threats from multiple angles that the Turtles have to deal with. There's more. There's one of the issues I have. It's a strength and an issue, is that aside from Superfly, the Turtles are able to, eventually with Splinter coming on board, are able to reason with Superfly's henchmen into seeing the error of his ways and what he wants to do, and what him wanting to do to humans is wrong. And so they eventually turn on Superfly and help the Turtles. That includes Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yep.
So I get it, and I like what it achieves, the message it sends. I like all that. My issue is, so Bebop and Rocksteady are now quote unquote good guys, to the point where they're living in the sewers with the Turtles. this may be the purist in me, but that's going to take a little bit getting used to. That was an issue that I'm like,
Yeah, that's a pretty big switch.
I don't know if I like that. Like, I'm not sure yet.
Well, it's kind of a bummer because they are really good henchmen.
Yeah.
You know, they're great as like a secondary type villain. But you're right. They're switching. They're playing for the other team now.
Do you think, here's my question to you, do you think at some point in the sequel, quote unquote, if, spoilers, when Shredder shows up, that they'll do another turn and switch again?
I mean, it's possible, you know. Maybe he's got some way to tempt them to bring them on board.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a technodrome or something.
I'm curious to see how that works itself out. But that is, I think, going to be that. Again, it's not a deal breaker for me, obviously. It's just something that it's going to take a while for me to get on board with.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, if they had left it, like, for me, the thing is, if they had left it like, look, we get it, we'll help you this once, but after that, we still don't like you, and they went their separate ways, I would get it. But it's like, hey, we're roommates now. It's like, I don't know if I'm down with that. I did really like the interaction between the Turtles and April.
Yeah. And Leonardo and April, there seems to be something a little more than friendship brewing there, at least from his side.
At least, yeah, especially from his side. And that's a switch in of itself, because usually it's Raphael and Michelangelo that are crushing on her. But in this one, it's Leo. And I think what is different about all of their not just Leo and hers, but all of their relationships, is the fact that they're the same age in this, or around the same age.
Yeah,
Whereas
they're all high school age teenagers.
Yeah. Whereas in every other iteration, she's older than that. You know, she's an adult. I think of it like it's the small vilification of the Turtles and April, in that sense, which is not a bad thing, because, you know, Smallville, for the most part, I really enjoy it.
Hey,
but
it's a successful show for 10 years.
Yeah, so if you're going to copy something that works, or not copy it, but if you're going to borrow an idea from something, borrow it from what works, right? Like, you know, there are worse things you can borrow from.
But it kind of makes sense in today's world, because okay, April has traditionally been a journalist. That's a job that you think someone would have, like, post-college career.
Yeah.
But now we are able to document so many things on our phones these days. You don't need a cameraman like Vern riding around town with you to get stories. So I kind of like the dynamic that it created between them. And I'm hoping to see them together more in that high school setting in future stories.
Right, agreed. I agree with you 100% there. One of the things I liked about this movie too was the fact that, because the Turtles are so young and sort of fresh into this Ninja Turtle aspect of their world, right? They're not as perfect or polished as we've, come to know them. Like, their initial fight is full of blunders, and one of them gets is it Donatello or Michelangelo? I think it's Donatello. Accidentally gets stabbed in the leg during the fight.
Raphael's side.
Yeah. So it's like, it's very unpolished. They're very unpolished, and they improve throughout the course of the film. And I like that. It's especially when a character, or characters in this case, are sort of new in the superheroing game. I like there to be some mistakes being made. Some trial and error, an improvement over time. It's one of the issues I had with, as much as I love the show, with Arrow, whenever Oliver would bring in a new teammate, they'd have one interaction with him, and man, they were experts at superheroing off. It's like, huh? What? Huh? How does that work? So I like that. There was some, trepidation. There was some, trial and error with their sort of ninja / superheroing throughout the course of this movie.
The first fight they get into, one of them even calls it out like, "Hey guys, we've never actually been in a fight. We've trained in the sewers before, but we've never actually like punched somebody."
It kind of reminded me of like the Flash in Justice League, where when he tells Batman, he's like, "I've never really done this before. I usually just push people out of the way," right? So it had that kind of vibe to it. But I did like, as the film goes on, when they're trying to when they're working with April to track down information on Superfly's operation. Like we have that montage of different fights, and you see how much they've improved.
Yeah,
I thought that was really well done.
I thought, it was a cool like scene, and it was a neat visual style that they used, and they went with kind of like the gimmick of they had like 4 separate
each turtle got
bosses that they were breaking up their organizations or whatever, and they used like one turtle for each one of them, and then at the end they all combined and like fought together. So that was really well done.
That was really cool, and the animation in those scenes was very, very detailed, and like even just to call out the animation specifically, there's that scene where at the beginning where they're on, they descend on the roof and it's all dark and atmospheric, like, the background looks stunning with the moon behind them. Like that's sort of kind of vintage, classic TMNT. But the detail when like in that moment they're like the white eyes with the bandanas with the white eyes, the detail focus on their face and their eyes was like really key in that scene, and I really love that as a first image of the turtles, like the first time you see them in all their glory kind of thing. I think that was a great shot. In addition to the montage, looked really cool, and then the third act I thought was like, especially with what they went for, the style that they were going for, which we'll talk about as we get closer there. I thought those were the 3 times that the animation really excelled. And then, much like Splinter had warned, the turtles do get captured along the way in their quest to stop Superfly. They get captured by Cynthia Utrom, and she does so come out to the milking machine. And April sees this happen, and she goes to Splinter, and makes a plea, and tells him what's been going on, that she's befriended his sons, and she convinces him to help her save them, and which he does. And when Splinter gets into the fray in terms of the fighting, he's a total badass, and I love that because it's Jackie Chan, so he should be. But I love it even more because this film makes a point of making him look older and a little bit more frail. But then when push comes to shove and he has to get into the physicality of it all, like it's like super badass. So I like it. He
uses the turtles' weapons in that scene. He gets their weapons.
Yeah.
He uses them in that fight scene. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I agreed, and I really like the idea of once he sees the turtles and they are kind of cornering Superfly before he goes, like super huge or Superfly as he calls it. When they all have him, like they're all ganging up to kind of grab him and try and take him down. And, Superfly's making an appeal to Splinter, and he's like, help me. He's like, you and I are basically the same. We both hate the humans. We know what they're really like. In that moment, Splinter has the realization of, I was wrong. And the mentality that I had made me know better than somebody like Superfly. I like that because it's like it's evolution, it's character development, and it's character development over the course of an hour and 40 minutes. And so I really enjoyed that realization. I thought that was a very powerful moment in the movie.
Yeah, and it even ties back to the beginning. I was kind of like put off guard or caught off guard by Splinter's initial comments about humans early in the movie. But even when it happened, I thought to myself, like, oh, he's probably not going to be this way at the end of the movie.
Right.
And you're right. That's it was a rewarding journey to take with that character. And you see it's paid off really well, I think.
Like, if you think about it, a lot of characters don't get that kind of, a lot of movies aren't able to pull off that kind of, character progression in multiple movies, let alone one single movie. And this one manages to do that. So kudos to the writers and everybody involved to be able to do that. And then, through that altercation, Superfly falls in more ooze and becomes Superfly.
Super duper fly.
Yeah, Super Duper Fly. That's it. And by the way, just before, as we get into that, as we transition that, the hip hop kind of songs that were chosen for this movie, I thought fit perfectly.
Oh,
It kind of reminded me of the first two live action movies, right? With the songs, it had that,
What's up?
It reminded me of the first, like that kind of sort of hip hop kind of vibe soundtrack.
Oh,
reminded me of the first two movies.
Yeah, right on. Well,
right?
Did you hear the part in the movie where they played Go Ninja Go?
I did. Yeah. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it was a really nice callback, I thought.
Yeah, it was very well done. So he becomes Super Duper Fly, and he's this giant, essentially a kaiju, attacking New York City.
Yeah, he's part whale. I think he's got a lobster claw. He's got horses for feet.
Yeah, he's a mix of everything.
He says he has a giraffe head.
He's like the ultimate mutant, if you will, I guess, or an amalgamated mutant. I don't know. Ultimate mutant is the right word because I don't know who. I don't know what mutant would want to look like that. That's not a good look, personally. But and I think there's even a reference to, like, he says, "Oh, you thought it was Godzilla or something, or did it was a King Kong?" I think it was Godzilla that he referenced, right?
Oh, I don't know. I missed that.
I'm pretty sure it was Godzilla, and it's also worth noting that there were multiple pop culture references. So there was obviously a reference to Batman with the voice that Leonardo was putting on early on in the opening scene. And then there was also a reference to Mark Ruffalo and Avengers Endgame, which I thought, again, I just think that kind of stuff is kind of cool, right? Because it makes this fantastical animated film. It roots it into like the real world kind of thing, real world,
right?
And it's the idea that it sells the idea that these are teenagers, so they would have read comics or seen movies about Batman. Of course, they would have seen Avengers Endgame, so it all makes sense. But that final battle was awesome. I thought the whole third act was great on several fronts for me. One, because there are moments where you actually question of you know that they're going to because of the nature of the movie, but there are moments where you question, can they get out of it, and how are they going to get out of it, because they look like they're on the verge of being defeated. Both the Turtles and Splinter at one point. And then the second reason why I liked it is because it kind of echoes the Amazing Spider-Man 1 a bit when the city starts helping Peter. Remember when he's injured and he has get from building to building? Well, that happens. A similar thing happens here where the people of New York, once the news breaks that the Turtles are actually the good guys in this scenario, the people of New York start helping them. And the person that initiates that help, that helps Splinter, who's injured on the ground, kind of helps pick him up, is actually Kevin Eastman. I don't know if you picked up on that.
No, I didn't.
So that was a cool nod to the co-creator of the TMNT. It was complete with his voiceover as well.
I saw that he had a voice credit in the movie. Yeah. I didn't know where it was.
Yeah, so that was a nice nod. And it's cool that the Turtles use Cynthia Utram's weapons against her, because they had gotten a hold of a weapon to demutinize Superfly, and they ultimately deliver the final blow and are able to stop him. But what did you think of that third act? What was your thoughts on all that and how it played out?
I enjoyed it because if this were just like a run-of-the-mill comic book movie, it would have been a big smash 'em up, beat 'em up, 30 minutes long, extended finale,
Yeah.
But this one, they had to work together as a team. You said, the New Yorkers got in on it too, helping them get that demutinizing serum to Super Duper Fly. But also the way it left it at the end with Cynthia Utram having the demutinized version of Superfly on her desk, and then this is a post-credit scene. I don't know if we want to talk about it yet, but it leads.
Go ahead. We can spoil it.
When she sees that they tell her that Superfly wasn't able to get the job done against the Turtles, and she says, "Okay, well now it's time to call in the Shredder."
Yeah.
And see the outline of Shredder.
The thunderstorm, the darkness, and then you see that was a great shot to end it all. Yeah, that was good.
So I thought that, and in the third act we get the whole thing that the Turtles were looking for this entire movie, the acceptance, when the crowd gathers around them, when they cause Super Duper Fly to become unmutated, the New Yorkers gather around them and start cheering because April has hijacked a broadcast at Channel 6 News and gone out and gone on the TV to tell the New Yorkers the Turtles are not working with Superfly, they're fighting against him. They're on our side. So it was really, I thought it was a nice payoff at the end of the movie to see the Turtles get what they were looking for, what that acceptance that was so deep and so important to them.
Yeah. And again, to see them at the end, to see them walk into a school just as they are with, they do have some human clothing on.
And everybody in the school starts cheering for him and stuff.
Yeah, it's so different than anything we've seen that I got to give this movie credit for, in several points throughout the film, in several scenarios, despite me not being sure about one in particular, charting new territory with, a brand that is how many decades old? 3-4 decades now, almost. 4 decades now, and they're managing to break new ground with this thing. I think that's pretty impressive. And it's going to be interesting to see how they part of the fun will be how they adapt to being at a human high school. I'm sure that'll come with its set of problems, and eventually they'll be back to doing their Ninja Turtling, if that's a term. But seeing how that plays out and develops is going to be fun. But it was nice that, like you said, the Turtles came full circle with what they wanted at the beginning. We talked about Splinter having a sort of a character, some character development. Even the people of New York, by and large, had character growth, in the sense that they were so anti-human the first time they saw them out in public to when they saw the Turtles by the end of the film. That's a progression. So this film is so well put together.
Even
so
April progressed a little bit because she was finally able to go on camera, although she did throw up again.
Yeah, but she didn't get as nervous, right? And again, I like the nod to her Channel 6, future perhaps, or even just
Mm-hmm.
the what's been known of the character for all these decades. So I like the way that they worked that in their own way. It was really cool. So yeah, is there anything we haven't touched on or that we missed that you think we should touch on before we go ahead and rate it?
I just want to shout out the voice cast. I don't think we got into that too much, but I thought that Jackie Chan did a great job as
Fantastic.
As Splinter. I really thought that he was excellent. Ice Cube as Superfly
was cool.
tremendous.
Yeah.
He was good. I thought he was great. And a couple ones that I really were highlights for me were Post Malone as Ray Fillet.
Yeah.
And he kept singing in that really high pitched voice, which I thought was awesome. Because Post Malone is like the perfect guy to do that type of voice.
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko. He seemed like kind of like the best buddy sort of relationship with the Turtles out of all of the group that were in the mutant gang for Superfly. But he seemed like he was the one that really wanted to like hang out and be buddies with them and like be close with them. So it was really cool to see them, basically living together at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, the voice cast, I thought everybody did a really good job in this movie. None of the big name actors, like I wasn't taken out of the movie by hearing their voices.
Right. Yeah.
I think they all blended in really well together. Including the Turtles. I'm not familiar with the work of any of these four young actors who voiced the Turtles, but I think they all did a great job.
The only one I knew sparingly was the Raphael voice actor because he had been in the short-lived relaunch of the Mighty Ducks, the series on Disney Plus. So I knew him from that. But even that, the voice cast for the Turtles was so refreshing because I didn't have that familiarity. So I could just, in my head, it was just, okay, here's Leo, Mikey, Donnie, and Raph, and not some big name actor. But even like for Bebop and Rocksteady with Seth Rogen and John Cena,
yeah,
I didn't even it took me on the second watch near the end of the movie to realize, oh yeah, that's John Cena, because he does a little bit of an alteration with his voice that it's not.
Yeah, he absolutely does.
Yeah, so the only thing I'll say with Bebop and Rocksteady is of all of the, I think they were a little bit underused. Is what I would say, but other than that, I think the voice work was fine. It was good, and like I said, I liked everybody, and nobody. When you have that many big names, it's highly possible that you could be taken out of the film, but I wasn't. So it's a good call there. And we touched on the musical, cues that were good. So yeah, all right. So with that, I guess we can go ahead and give a letter grade for this movie. So Chris, take it away. Give us your letter grade.
Oh, this movie gets an A from me. The animation style was really cool. When we first got our first glimpses of this movie and we got like the teasers and the trailers and stuff, I was somewhat taken aback by how young some of the turtles sounded, especially Donnie. Like he sounds like he's probably not even a teenager yet, But I know
12 going on 13. Yeah.
His voice is very a very high voice that you don't normally hear. But none of that mattered to me when I was watching the movie. I was involved in the storyline the whole time. The action was really good. It was funny. It had heart. It had a lot of fun mutant on mutant action. So I enjoyed this movie a lot. I'm looking forward to showing it to my kids. They didn't watch it with me, but it's one that I certainly will watch with them. And anything that comes out of this in the future, as far as TV series or subsequent films, I'm on board with.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I think it has everything you want in a Turtles movie, in the sense that it has the martial arts fighting, the action, the heroics. But, at the core of it, it has, the message of heart, the heart of it all and the family of it all is still at its core. And so that's all there. Plus, it felt, for a long-time fan like me, it felt familiar enough that I could, get caught up in it again, but also fresh enough that it was like, well, I didn't expect them to do that. I've never seen this before. And that's just as cool as being, nostalgia is cool, but it's also cool when I can like something that I've loved for years, but they put a new shine, a new spin on it. So, I like when movie studios and TV shows. I like both aspects. I like my nostalgia, but I like my fresh and new with my properties as well. So I think this one has all of that. Like you said, they had the Go Ninja song in there. They managed to work in the classic cowabunga in the third act. So it had a good balance of what I was familiar with and all the new and exciting stuff that they added to the mythos. And what you said about the animation, I remember early on when we got those early designs, I wasn't sure how it was going to translate to motion. It's one thing to see something on a page and then see it in motion. And any reservations I had went away when I saw this thing in motion. So, yeah, I had a blast with this film. Like I said, I liked it the first time I came out of it. On second watch, I ended up loving it. So it's going to get an A for me. Which is like I remember when I came out of it the first time. I think on Facebook I said it was like a 7.5, but it just went higher upon my second viewing. So yeah, it's an A for me at this point. And I'm looking forward to the series, the animated series, and of course the obvious sequel that's going to follow. I will be there as well, and it was nice to be a long-term fan of this franchise and watch it with a couple of my nieces and a couple of my nephews and my niece, and have multiple generations watching this. So I think that'll be another experience for you when you watch it with your kids as well. So yeah, but I loved it, and it's an A for me as well. So that pretty much brings this episode to a close. But you can always chat with Chris and I about all the things we podcast on through social media. So Chris, where do they track you down on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter /X at Chris N. Harrelson, or when Adam posts about this in the Facebook groups, I can jump up in there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, or whatever it's being called these days, at Adam_LeafSfan. As Chris mentioned, we do have a Facebook group, which will be linked in the description below. Click that, I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there. Until next time, remember that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are forever. From the first time they battle with Superfly to save New York, to the last. So long, everybody.